So as we make our way from the German ocean liner, the Kaiser Wilhelm II, onward into history, let's talk about the ship that dethroned it as the largest ship in the world. Let's discuss some of the engineering and design principles behind the White Star Line's RMS Oceanic. So before we discuss the engineering on Oceanic, let's talk a little bit about the situations that led to the Oceanic's construction. We have to start here. This is not Oceanic. This is actually the Majestic, one of the two Teutonic-class liners built by the White Star Line in the late 1880s. It was, at the time, the premier ship of the White Star Line, but it had been severely outclassed. Two major Cunarders had been launched in the middle of the 1890s. At the end of the 1890s, the Germans launched the SS Kaiser Wilhelm II, which was significantly larger and more opulent. The White Star Line had been completely outclassed by the German liners and by their domestic competitors, Cunard, and having sort of abandoned the speed element, they could now focus entirely on size and luxury, and that's where the Oceanic comes in. Now, just for size reference, here is the Oceanic compared to the Kaiser Wilhelm II. These are, by the way, to scale. So, as you can see, Oceanic is significantly larger than the German liner. In fact, it was the first vessel ever built to outsize the Great Eastern, what was previously the largest ship in the world. It's now 1899. The Germans have domination of the North Atlantic, but the British are about to take it back with this ship, the Oceanic. The Oceanic herself was absolutely massive. At over 17,000 gross registered tons, she was larger than the Great Eastern and any other ship in the world, making her the largest moving object on Earth. She was 704 feet long, that's 215 meters, and her beam, or her width, was 88 feet, or about 20 meters, actually closer to 21. Built by Harland and Wolff in Belfast, she was propelled through the water by two 4-cylinder triple expansion steam engines. These steam engines provided 28,000 horsepower to push the ship through the water at a cruising speed of 19 knots with a top speed of 21 knots. And all of this could move a total of 410 first-class passengers, 300 second-class passengers, and 1,000 third-class passengers, who would be tended to by about 350 crew members. Now, a few other interesting tidbits that I think we should mention while discussing the sort of surroundings of the Oceanic here is that she actually was supposed to have a sister. The White Star Line had a habit of ordering ships in pairs. The most notable example here would be the Teutonic and Majestic, their key ships from 1889, and even before that, the Britannic and the Germanic in 1875. So the plan was to continue that trend with the Oceanic, having a sister who was to be named Olympic. But in November of 1899, the then chairman of the White Star Line, Thomas Ismay, passed away, and following his death, decisions were made to reallocate those resources to the construction of a larger class of ship, which would ultimately become the Big Four. As a result, the Olympic, being the sister ship of the Oceanic, was cancelled, and that name would eventually be reused about 10 years later on the first Olympic-class liner. That left the Oceanic being sort of an odd ship in the fact that she had no sisters. She was technically part of a second Oceanic class, but she is in a class of her own. There was no ship like her, and she had no twins. But there's a lot of interesting design elements of the Oceanic that would become very familiar to people more familiar with later White Star liners. Well, the Big Four would resemble ships like the Majestic and the Teutonic with their sort of scattered superstructures. This idea of a solid front superstructure where the bridge is on top of the main section of the superstructure instead of a separate island would become a prominent feature on the Olympic class, and in fact, there's a lot of similar design elements from the front section of the Oceanic class that would make their way onto the Olympic class 10 years later. So in a lot of ways, this ship sort of set up the White Star Line to be what they would become in the next 10 years. It marked the first major ship built with size in mind instead of speed, and the first purpose-built sort of White Star Line legendary ship since the Teutonic. There was one ship built in the 1890s, the Cymric, that was supposed to be the flagship, but it was really a converted cargo ship and was big, but not necessarily opulent. So the Oceanic stood out as the trendsetter that would set the trend for the White Star Line for the next 10 years, that they would really carry on until the company was sort of absorbed by their competition. But if you'd like to learn more about the Oceanic, I'll leave a link up here to a playlist I'm building all about the Oceanic. There you'll find videos on her career, as well as some of her interior design and the way she was laid out on the inside from a passenger's perspective. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Barbettes and Binnacles, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.